Hello, how are you doing? And welcome back to the channel. Wales against England, third round of the Six Nations in Cardiff this weekend. Always from an England and a Welsh point of view, one of the biggest fixtures of the Six Nations, one of the biggest fixtures of the year. So in this video, I'm going to be naming my England squad to take on Wales in that game. My starting 15 and my bench. As always, this sort of thing, people always have their own opinion on selection and things like that. So do drop a comment down below on the selections you like and also the ones that you would maybe select a little bit differently. Do subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already. Always really appreciate that. And like the video, that just helps with the algorithm. All right, let's get into it. Just to clarify, the criteria for this squad is basically I'm picking from the 36-man England training squad that Steve Borthwick has had this week. Sometimes when I do videos on kind of England selection and stuff, I might get people in the comments sort of saying, why this person, why not this person sort of thing. But I'm just going off the people available to Steve Borthwick. So Valrapava Ruskin, for example, if he was part of that training squad, would probably be in my starting 15. But he's not, he hasn't been selected. So the Gloucester man, unfortunately, is not available. So that's kind of what I'm going with. It's also just worth mentioning, obviously, this game is still up in the air at the moment with the threatened strikes from the Welsh players and all the issues going on off the field in the game in Wales at the moment. I believe Warren Gatland is naming his squad today. By the time a lot of you watch this video, that squad probably will be out already. But I think he is naming his squad, and then maybe we might get more news on those talks between the Welsh Players Association and the union and everything tomorrow, which is Wednesday. But for the time being, game going ahead, let's get into it. This is my starting 15. I'll pop it up on the screen there so you can all see it. Just to quickly run through it and then I'll go through in more detail. I've got Ellis Genge, Jamie George and Will Stuart in the front row. Ollie Chessum and Maro Itoje continuing in the second row. Back row selection is so difficult, but I've gone with Lewis, Ludlam, Jack Willis and then Tom Curry coming in at number 8. Alex Mitchell and Owen Farrell as the halfbacks. Ollie Lawrence and Henry Slade continuing in the centres. And then Cadan Murley, Max Mallins and Freddie Steward to complete the starting 15. Just very quickly on my bench, Tom Dunn, Bevan Rodd, Kyle Sinckler, Nick Isiekwe, Ben Earl, Jack Van Portfleet, Marcus Smith and Henry Arundell. I'm going to run through it all and explain it all in the video, but that just kind of gives you an idea of the 23 that I'm going for. And the beauty of doing these videos and the beauty for us as fans is we almost don't necessarily have to be rational. There are, I think, some holes in my squad, and I'll point them out as I go along. The big one, I think, being number 8. But we can kind of play, as I said in the intro, a bit of fantasy rugby. Who do we want to see playing and not necessarily have to think of the specific tactical battle that England will be faced with? So I just want to throw that in there. But let's get into it. Ellis Genge and Jamie George keep their spots. I think they've both been pretty good so far. Jamie George, I had some questions over after the Scotland game, but the line-out was much improved against Italy, so I'm sticking with him. My change in the front row is bringing Will Stuart in, someone we haven't seen this Six Nations so far, meaning Kyle Sinckler is going to come off the bench. I think automatically that is making the bench front row replacements a lot stronger, having Sinckler come off the bench. And I wanted to see Will Stuart, and people talk about England shoring up their set piece, and I think they have done that a little bit in the opening couple of rounds of the Six Nations. I think Will Stuart actually maybe will help you do that. It's not necessarily, in fact, I think Kyle Sinckler's played a lot better for England than he necessarily has for Bristol, but even so, I just wanted a change in that front row. I want to see Will Stuart come in and see what he can do. Second row continues the same. Before the Italy game, I actually would have dropped Maro Itoje. I think I said that in my team selection for the video I did on that one. But I think against Wales in Cardiff, even though Wales have lost 2 games, this is going to be a real tough atmosphere for England to go into. Because presuming the game is going ahead, everything that's gone on off the field, Wales lost 2 games so far, backs against the wall, a Warren Gatland Wales team against England. I think it's going to be a really tough game for England, both emotionally and physically. I think they will be up against it with what will come at them. So therefore I want Maro Itoje in there. I think he is a big game player, and Ollie Chessum has impressed so far. Now the back row for England, this is honestly, I think the hardest selection call, because I couldn't drop Lewis Ludlam. I've been really impressed with him. I love what he does. I thought Jack Willis was brilliant against Italy. would have been man of the match if he'd been on the pitch longer. But then I look at Tom Curry, and any of you who watched Northampton against Sale would have seen how good he was for Sale Sharks, and we all know what a top operator he is. I think if everyone's fit and everyone's on form, Tom Curry's probably England's best back rower. So I couldn't leave him out. So I put Tom Curry at 8, which means Dombrandt has dropped out. And because I've kept Ben Earl on the bench, the obvious flaw in my squad is no recognised number 8. I completely appreciate that's an issue, but there's just certain pieces that I wanted to fit into the squad and I couldn't leave them out. So Tom Curry at number 8, have I got that completely wrong? I'm sure you'll all be quick to tell me in the comments, but that's my back row. And by the way, that is a back row that is gonna bang. It is gonna hit. It's gonna be a menace at the breakdown with Curry and Jack Willis. I think it's really, really exciting. And then all of them get through the hard yards as well in terms of rucks and tackles and all that sort of stuff. So that would be my back row. Alex Mitchell's coming in at 9. I've got Jack Van Portfleet on the bench. No place for Ben Youngs. I think his England time, as brilliant a career as he's had, should probably be over. But I think Jack Van Portfleet, I like him. I think he's a great option moving forward. I just don't think he's quite made that 9 shirt his own just yet. And with Mitchell having a really good impact off the bench against Italy, I want to see him get a start for England. I want to see him dictate the tempo of the game from the first whistle. So that's why I've got him at 9. Owen Farrell, the captain, he continues at fly half. I've still got Marcus Smith on the bench, and I know George Ford has been brought back into the squad, but I just think it's too early. He's barely played for Sale. I don't have a problem with him being part of the squad because I think he will have a role to play for England going forward, possibly into the World Cup. But for now, just get George Ford in camp, get him back into the environment, let him see what they are doing so that when his time does come, he's more up to speed. But it'd be way too early for him to play at the moment. In the centres, Ollie Lawrence, Henry Slade continues. We have, for years as England fans, been trying to work out the centre combination, the reliance on Manu Tuolangi. Finally, Ollie Lawrence, a man of the match performance. And Henry Slade, we know, he's got over 50 caps. Let's stick with them. Let's give them more game time. Just a caveat on that, and this is something I'll probably mention later in the week when I do a full preview of the game. Ollie Lawrence is going to have a lot tougher afternoons at the office in international rugby than he did against Italy. I actually thought Italy didn't defend against him particularly well, which was why he was partly why he was smashing over the gain line so much. He won't have it all his own way in Cardiff against Wales, but even so, you've still got to keep him. And then finally, Cadan Murley, I'm giving him a debut. Obviously, Ollie Hassel-Collins has dropped out of the squad with a knee injury, so Cadan Murley is named there. I was a toss-up between him and Tommy Freeman because I still want Henry Arundell on the bench because, again, he's been out quite a lot this season through injury. I don't want to just chuck him back in. I want to continue to see him develop off the bench for the time being. I don't think there's any doubt that with a run of fitness, he will be a starter. So for now, I wanted to see Cadan Murley, who I opted for, just because I think he's earned that opportunity. And then I'm sticking with Max Mallins and Freddie Steward. So that's my starting 15. As I said, my bench, Tom Dunn, Bevan Rodd, Kyle Sinckler. Change of props there, so no Dan Cole, no Mako Vunipola, a little bit younger, a little bit more of a nod to the future, but 2 guys that I think can do a job if we give them those opportunities in Bevan Rodd and Tom Dunn. I guess Tom Dunn's actually fairly experienced, isn't he? Not necessarily a younger option, but even so, he's not experienced at international level, I mean experienced in the club game. So I'd like to see Tom Dunn given more of an opportunity, Bevan Rodd and Kyle Sinckler as well. Then sticking with Nick Isiekwe, that kind of big lock to come on. Could have gone Dave Ribbons there. You know, it could have really gone either way. And then Ben Earl, I just love what he does at the breakdown, his explosiveness. Can England exploit him in some of the outside channels? That's possibly a weakness in my squad because of no recognised number 8. And then, as I've said, JVP, Marcus Smith, Henry Arundell rounding off the bench. So that is my England 23 to take on Wales this weekend. What do you make of it? Drop a comment down below. Let me know the absolute howlers, the clangers I've dropped in there. I personally think it's a pretty good squad. I think number 8 is the main issue that you could come at me for. But also let me know, who would you name? What would your squads be? Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.